marketing agencies serving local businesses. You are a commodity right now, and you can make your clients to pay double without running more ads, increasing budgets, or taking more responsibility. Here's how. This is you running ads, generating leads. Of course, it depends on the industry, but usually this is the pipeline. You finish your work here. But there are two very big question marks that each business needs to cover. Here, everything that is happening between you generating the lead and the lead becomes a customer. Everything from nurturing, qualification to appointment setting and cross-selling. Now, once the customer became a client or the lead became a customer, you or the business need to handle the review requests, referrals, upsells, and affiliate deals. Of course, when it comes to local businesses, the majority of them are not doing that. Not because they don't need it or they don't want, but usually because they're busy, because they don't know how to ask for it correctly, they don't know the right time for it, or they simply forget. That is why you can increase the value of your services by not stopping here and rather helping the business to close more deals and grow organically without them needing to spend more money on the ads. So this will be basically your new pipeline. Now, of course, when I say you will make them grow without spending more money on the ads, it might be a bit controversial because you can charge per the money that you spend for the business, and you might be directly tied to the amount of money that they spend. But usually, if you structured your offer correctly and if you deliver the results, this is not a problem. A lot of the agencies that integrate the conversational sales system from the one prompt are concerned about the fact that once they start handling the sales, the actual performance will decrease because they've never been on the sales side of the actual pipeline and they were just driving the leads. I can tell you, of course, it again depends on the client that you're working with, but usually this will not be a problem because local businesses are pretty bad when it comes to nurturing, qualification, appointment setting, or the cross-selling. You can add, follow-ups, you can add the re-engagement here, of course. So you cannot make the results worse by integrating the system. Now, the way you will do that is by utilizing multiple tools. The first one that you need to understand is that you need a system where everything will come together. We are using high level for this. You can technically use the CRM of the business, which I would not recommend you to do because it is kind of limited. Now, if you don't want to use the high level for some reason, you can technically build an interface on Airtable. Now, so this interface will receive all the leads that come to your pipeline. Again, really depends on what type of the ads you're running and how your campaigns are structured, because if you are running the ads on Meta and the business, the potential clients fill out the form, you can connect this form directly in here, inside the high level, and this will be pulled into the contact list and you can trigger automations from that. Now, if you're, for example, running just the Google ads and people fill out the form on the website, this way you can, of course, integrate it a bit differently. Then, the conversational engine, because this is the most important part. So, how are we going to nurture all the leads that come to the pipeline? Again, it really depends on the type of the business that you're working with. You can technically integrate a simple chatbot. So if we go into the local business in Florida, you can technically integrate any chatbot on the website here on the right that will nurture the leads. Now, this is not very feasible if you're running the lead gen forms. That is why you would need to understand the channel that you are targeting. In this form, what you can add is a question: what type, where do you want to get contacted? And when people say like SMS, email, or phone, depending on that, you would start a separate automation, for example, inside the high level. So if we, take a look here into the one of the solutions that we, for example, have is called engagement agent. You can build like similar system based on your preferences. Here, it is triggered when something is happening. In this case, when the form is submitted. And this is the form that is directly created inside the high level. Now, you can integrate this form and embed this form on the client website, but it's just, again, only relevant if this is what you're trying to do, if the people are filling out this form and entering the pipeline through the website. If they're entering through the Facebook form, you would just set not the trigger as the Facebook form, you would actually go into the Facebook lead form submit, and then you would trigger different actions. So within these actions, basically what you need an SMS, right? So you let's say if they choose the SMS, you would, said, okay, so the SMS, and you would like start engaging with the user. Of course, the question is, okay, one thing is to engage, but then how do we actually nurture? You need the engine. The engine could be built in a lot of different ways. We are using both N8N and VoiceFlow. Technically, I think when you're starting out, you don't need to overcomplicate it and use or kind of integrate this type of the agent right away. You can simply go into the VoiceFlow, and within the VoiceFlow, you can create a pretty simple agent. You can even get the free resources from my resource hub, get some sort of an engine that will just ask questions, qualify the prospect. If the prospect is qualified or not, depending on the stage, it will then move it to a different kind of stages, right? Something like that. Here, you would say, okay, you're sending the SMS, then you would build a separate automation that will then receive. So you first send the engagement message, then you receive a message from the user as a reply, and this reply will be sent through the API request to the VoiceFlow engine. Now, guys, I'm sorry, I know that it might be complicated, and I said that it's not that like hard to do, but in reality, if you spend, some time, and if you have some understanding of the tools, you will be able to pull this off. Now, what I could also recommend you to do is, if you have a very simplified pipeline, you can use the internal high-level agents, right? So yes, these agents are not that sophisticated, and it's very hard to build a complex qualification flows and do the sub actions based on what is happening within the flow. Yeah, sure, but this could be a really good entry and a test point for you to try to go from this stupid marketing tool lead system into the actual unique mechanism that will generate the business more cash flow. And here you can do both the text and the voice agents. Regarding the retention, this is similarly simple, but yet very effective, depending on your use case. If you think about this, once the job is done, the only thing that you need to do is to ask the business to mark it within their system. Now, if they are not using any system, this is a good way for you to pitch them the high level as the CRM, even though we never pitched our clients high level as a CRM, even though it is just technically the CRM with automation capabilities, because they might get a bit defensive. So you just pitch it as your, sales system mechanism. Anyways, so if they have their own system, you will ask them to push a button saying, hey, this job is complete. If not, if they're on the phone, if they're not using anything, at least send, a message or go into the form, fill out the form about the client or something. So you need some sort of a trigger. Now, once the job is done, you can simply start an automation, so with this type of the trigger, and this automation will send a review request to the user, but not directly. This is not something new. People are, sending review requests all the time. What is new here is that when you are building like an automation workflow, instead of, having a trigger here and, sending like an email saying, hey guys, thank you for being interested in our service, rate us on Google or something like that. No, you will make a conversational experience. You will also send an SMS. You can also send it as an email. You can make a outbound voice call through retail or VAPI for sure, but I would say that it's better to keep it in text, because still text, if you configure it correctly, if you actually build a truly conversational flow with multiple messages in and out, people will not able to understand if this is the AI and this is what you want, because when they're talking to this AI, sure, you can get the results, but I think it's not ideal. That is why here on the trigger, you would send an SMS. So here you would send an SMS. This could be static. Hey, John, thanks for, or like, no, thanks. So we usually say, hey, John, we just completed the project. Do you need anything else, or are you satisfied with everything that, just happened? Now, I'm kind of throwing this type of the random word at your face, but in reality, we need to try to keep it informal. We're not asking for the review. We just need to make them respond. They'll say usually, hey, thank you for that. Whatever, if I need anything, I'll let you know. Now, if they say something positive, we will route the prospect through, again, so it's harder to do it with the conversational agent inside high level, but if you're using the voice or the N8N, you can technically say, okay, if the prospect, you will analyze the intent of the prospect. If the prospect intent is positive, you will do one thing. If negative, you will do another thing. If it's positive, then you can pass this positive intent back to the webhook, and here you would do the if statement, and you say if this is, if some sort of a variable that you pass through the API request back is positive, this means that we will like send, hey, I would really appreciate if you post a review on Google. Anyways, if you want me to create an entire video about the review request system and the loyalty loop, flywheel, however you call it, that you can build for your clients, press the like button. You know the rule, 200 likes on this video, I will create the entire overview of the system, what you can do and how you should go about building that. Now, once the review is requested, let's say it's on Google, we're waiting for the review to be posted. And you can have different triggers with Google reviews here, and you actually have within the high level the reputation management type of the thing, which is separate. Again, if you want, I can create a separate video around the loyalty flywheel in general. But the idea is that when we receive a review from the customer, we respond to this review, and then we say, hey, John, saw your review, I appreciate that. Now we will ask for the referral. Do you need someone that needs this type of the service or has the problem? You can win one of the things. So you can add different bonuses and gifts when asking, and this will keep everything engaged. And when people are actually reaching out to the business through the referral, now it will be handled by your sales system. So this is an actual automatic loop that you will create for the business, right? Same thing happens for the re-engagement campaigns. Re-engagement and database reactivation is obviously a separate topic for the discussion. I've made several videos on that, but just keep in mind that a lot of the people are getting lost during this sales process. Sure, even it doesn't matter if you handle them or the business. So if business is handling all the leads, they might lose, 60% of them. And if you will integrate your own system, you might lose, 30%, but you will still lose some of the leads. And you can re-engage these leads through the database reactivation follow-up or re-engagement campaign. I will create a separate video on it. This is more like an outbound system. Here you can pair the outbound SMS with the outbound voice. Now you can obviously use something like a ringless voicemail drops when you drop a voicemailers to the customer. This is on a shady side within the US, at least right now. Plus, it is very expensive. So I would just suggest you to keep the eye on, simple outbound voice AI callers, pairing it up with the SMS. So as I said, you can keep it simple. You can build the entire system on top of the high level. If you want to start it up, you can use the AI agents. If you want to something sophisticated, if you don't want to spend like month developing it yourself, you can go with the one prompt. If you're doing it yourself, high level good. I would suggest you to use either the VoiceFlow or the N8N as the engine. If you're starting, if you don't know any of the tools, use N8N. If you know the VoiceFlow, just use VoiceFlow. Don't transition to the N8N. You will be able to do everything here. If you need some sort of additional automations on the form submits or connections between the CRM of the user and you can just use Make. Again, the N8N is good. You can use N8N for everything, but Make is more user-friendly. If you're learning something from scratch, it's going to be easier for you to understand. And by the way, yeah, sure, you will not be able to build the conversational agents engine on make.com just because there's like some specifics of handling the post processing as well as the before processing, like multiple messages. If you're using the database reactivation, if you're planning to deploy it to the business, you can use retail or WAPI, it doesn't really matter. Both of them have great APIs and great possibilities of integrating something like that. Thanks for watching. Have a good one. Peace.